Amelia Earhart. Story about Amelia Earhart was one of those strange mysteries that one could literally say a journey of no return. On a summer day in 1937, Amelia Earhart, a well-known aviator and a supporter of women's empowerment, went on a journey. And her goal was to go around the world if only she knew what awaited her. She was flying a Lockheed Electra 10E, which was custom built for her global flight attempt and her scheduled route for the journey, which started in Oakland, California. Amelia and her flight partner, Noonan, were to go westward across the United States, South America, Africa, India, Southeast Asia, and finally over the Pacific Ocean. The last known radio contact with Earhart was made with the United States Coast Guard of Itasca, which was positioned near Howland Island to provide radio path support. When Earhart made this last transmission, she said that she was believed they were near Howland Island but could not see it, and she was seriously running low on fuel. A large-scale search was conducted by the United States Navy and Coast Guard, covering about 250,000 square miles of ocean. Unfortunately, no trace of Earhart, Noonan, or the aircraft was ever found. Theories began to fly concerning what happened to the disappeared Amelia. Some people linked Earhart's fate to the crash and sink theory. The Gardner Island hypothesis, which states that Amelia Earhart and Noonan got stranded somewhere, or another theory that she was captured by the Japanese, but nobody actually knows what happened. Michael Bryson. This is a case of a young man who went on a seemingly normal retreat and then did something that would baffle his loved ones forever. What should have been a peaceful retreat for Michael Bryson soon turned into his haunting disappearance. He was a 35-year-old outdoor lover. On August 5th, 2020, after he took a trip to the hobo campground near Dorina and didn't come back, he was reported missing. His car was found at the campground, and his camping gear and phone were also left behind. In December of that year, some of his clothes were also found, but there was no trace of him. Michael's bank account has also not been accessed since his disappearance. A search effort began, which involved local authorities, volunteers, and advanced tracking technology. The search was made difficult by the rough path of forest, and this in turn didn't make the investigation thorough. Bryson was nowhere to be found. His family have since created a Michael Bryson Foundation, which would bring awareness to missing people and for mental health and drug addiction. Natalie Holloway. Sometimes a celebration may turn into a nightmare. For Natalie Holloway, this proved to be true. Natalie was a bright, lively student from Alabama, and she had traveled to Aruba with her classmates to celebrate their graduation. On the night of May 30th, 2005, she was seen leaving Carlos and Charlie's bar with Jordan Vandersloot, a Dutch national, and two of her friends. That was the last time anyone saw her. When Jordan and his friends were asked about what happened to her, they claimed they took Natalie back to the hotel room and left her there. Local authorities, FBI agents, and many volunteers began to look for her. Jordan was then arrested several times but released because the cops didn't have evidence against him. During one of his arrests, Jordan confessed about murdering Natalie, though his stories were inconsistent and didn't sound true. He admitted to executing the murder during her 2005 trip to Aruba and hitting her with a cinder block after she rejected his advances, then throwing her body into the ocean. 5 years after her disappearance, Jordan was also arrested for the murder of another young woman, Stephanie Flores, in Peru, which made people suspect he really was the culprit in Natalie's case. He was sentenced to 20 years for extortion and wire fraud charges in the US, and also 35 years for the murder of Stephanie. Despite admitting that he killed Natalie, the statute of limitations for murder in Aruba means he will not face punishment there for her death. Tara Calico. Imagine going on a daily ride through a familiar route but never returning. Well, that's Tara Calico's unfortunate case. On September 20th, 1988, 19-year-old Tara borrowed her mother's pink Huffy bike for her daily ride along New Mexico State Road 47. She told her mother, Patty Dole, to come get her by noon after playing tennis with her boyfriend. When she didn't return home, her mother immediately knew something was wrong. A massive search effort started, but only fragments of Tara's Sony Walkman and a cassette tape were found along the route. The case took a weird turn nearly a year later when a Polaroid photo turned up in a Florida parking lot. The image showed a young woman who looked like Tara, tied up and gagged, lying next to a boy of the same age as her, also tied up. People showed Tara's mother this picture, and she, in turn, told authorities that the young woman in the picture looked like her daughter and that the scar on the woman's leg looked just like Tara's. Despite this photo, no one knows where Tara is till today. She was pronounced officially dead in 1998. In 2008, the sheriff of Valencia County said that he got information that 2 teenagers killed Tara with a truck. He said he knew their names, but without a body, he couldn't really charge them with murder. The FBI in 2019 promised a reward of up to $20,000 for anyone who could lead them to the location of Tara. And in 2023, the police announced there was a breakthrough in the case, but the details of it won't be disclosed unless the court says so. Mora Murray. Here's another case that is equally baffling. Mora Murray mysteriously vanished on a cold February evening in 2004 after a car crashed on a rural road in New Hampshire. Mora, a 21-year-old nursing student, had packed her belongings and left her university without telling anyone why. Before the disappearance, Mora was said to have a series of crises. There was one time she got worried about her alcoholic sister that she broke down after a phone call and completely zoned out. Then, she went to a dorm party and on her way out of there, crashed her father's car. Mora's journey of no return began on February 9, 2004, when she emailed her professors, informing them that someone had died in her family, but this wasn't true. She also texted her boyfriend and told him that she loved him. She then drove into the White Mountains, where her car would later be found abandoned after a minor accident on Route 112. A passing motorist offered to help her, but Mora said no, and claimed that she had already called for help. When the police arrived minutes later, they didn't find Mora beside her car, and she has not been seen or heard from since. Unfortunately, despite many tips, leads, and even dedicated podcast series, Mora Murray is still a missing person. Richie Edwards. A story of a music lover whose intention to go on a music tour led to authorities and people touring the streets in search of him. Richie Edwards was a rock star, lyricist, and guitarist for the Manic Street Preachers who loved engaging in daring activities. And maybe one of his dares led him into what we now know as the disappearance of Richie Edwards. On February 1st, 1995, Richie checked out of the Embassy Hotel in London and vanished, just like that. He was supposed to fly to the US for a promotional tour, but never got on the plane. Before he disappeared, Richie was known for dark lyrics, which were most of the time personal. He also struggled with depression and previously harmed himself. All of these were no secret to anyone, and they often were reflected in the emotional and raw power of his music. His car was found 2 weeks later near the Severn Bridge, a popular spot for suicides. This made many people fear that Richie had jumped off the bridge and killed himself. However, when the police combed the area, they couldn't find any trace of him. Over the years, people have claimed to have sighted him in places like Goa and the Canary Islands, but none of these have been confirmed. He was officially declared dead in 2008. Emanuela Orandi. On June 22, 1983, the 15-year-old daughter of the Vatican employee vanished without anyone knowing what happened to her, and this was right after she attended a music lesson in Rome. Emanuela was a teenager with a love for music and dreams for the future. That summer evening, she left her family's Vatican City apartment for flute lessons, but never returned home. She had told her brother, Pietro, earlier that day that she got an offer to send out flyers for a product, but her brother warned her not to take up the offer. It was believed that Emanuela may have taken up the offer. When she didn't come back home, her family was immediately worried and began to look for her. People have suggested that Emanuela was kidnapped by an organized crime group as leverage against the Vatican. Even Pope John Paul II appealed for her release. Some believe that she might have been taken in connection with the attempted assassination of Pope John Paul II 2 years ago. Others say that she was a victim of a sex trafficking ring with ties to very high-ranking officials. In 2019, the Vatican agreed to open 2 tombs in the Teutonic Cemetery, based on an anonymous tip that said they would find Emanuela there. But sadly, the search turned up empty. Lauren Spyrrer. When Lauren Spyrrer made the decision to go out for a night of drinking with her friends, little did she know that her life would soon take a drastic turn. A 20-year-old student from Indiana University, Lauren vanished following an evening at Kilroy Sports Bar on June 3, 2011. While with her friends, Corey Rossman and David Ron that day, Lauren exchanged texts with her boyfriend, Jesse Wolfe. Witnesses recalled that Spyrrer was heavily intoxicated, and the Bloomington police figured out her movements using surveillance footage and witness statements. This is how the events leading to Lauren's disappearance unfolded. Upon returning to the sports bar, she arrived at her apartment complex when a passerby noticed her state of intoxication. Surveillance cameras captured her leaving the apartment and heading to Rossman's residence where they both were drunk. After leaving Rossman's place, she went to Rosenbaum's apartment where he observed a bruise under her eye. She then expressed a desire to go home. The last sighting of Lauren Spire was at 4:30 a.m., leaving Rosenbaum's apartment barefoot in leggings and a white shirt. It was Jesse Wolfe who reported her missing later that day. There are ideas about what could have happened to Spire that night. Her parents fear she may have been harmed after being drugged at the bar because she was very drunk. In 2017, Daniel Messel, who was found guilty in 2016 for killing IU student Hannah Wilson, was considered a suspect in the case of Lauren Spire. However, Messel has not been formally accused of her disappearance. Jimmy Hoffa. The famous case of Jimmy Hoffa, one can infer that power won't protect one at all times. Jimmy Hoffa, who served as the president of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, IBT, was last spotted getting out of his car at the Marcus Red Fox restaurant for a meeting with two mobsters. Before vanishing, Hoffa was actively involved in union activities. He quickly rose to prominence within the IBT during his 20s. By 1952, he had advanced to the position of vice president. He later served as general president from 1957 to 1971. Hoffa accomplished milestones such as negotiating the National Agreement for Teamsters rates in 1964 and expanding the union's membership to over 2.3 million people, making it the largest in the United States. Despite these achievements, Hoffa's ties to crime persisted until his disappearance in 1975. On July 30th, 1975, between 2:15 and 2:30 p.m., an agitated Hoffa phoned his wife from a payphone near Damon Hardware, expressing frustration that one of the men had not arrived for their meeting. He assured her he would be home by 4 p.m. to prepare steaks on the grill. Witnesses observed Hoffa pacing back and forth in the restaurant's parking lot and engaging in conversation with two individuals who greeted him cordially. After this, he never returned home, and by nightfall, his family and friends were frantically searching for him. Hoffa seemed to have left without a trace. Interesting speculations have come out after his disappearance. In 2012, police investigated a suburban Detroit driveway after they got a tip about his body buried there around the time Hoffa disappeared in 1975. But tests showed no human remains. Later, a gangster named Tony Zerilli claimed Hoffa was buried in a shallow grave in northern Oakland County, Michigan, while a landfill worker's deathbed confession pointed to Hoffa being buried in a steel drum in a New Jersey landfill. But the FBI's 2021 and 2022 searches found nothing. Which of these mysterious disappearances did you find the most intriguing? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. For more interesting videos, just hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell so you don't miss out on all our latest content. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.